And I know that my kids do not spell love, L-O-V-E, they spell it T-I-M-E. And so anything that takes that time away from them is something that better be worth it. And
hello, and welcome back to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Hall, and I am so grateful you're tuning in today. I am thrilled to welcome the amazing Madeleine Raiford-Holland to the show. Madeleine is a military wife, mother, and seven-figure entrepreneur who transitioned from a corporate COO role to establish a thriving short-term rental business. As the founder of MHM Luxury Properties, she has built a portfolio of boutique rentals and hosts the Lux and the Short of It podcast, where she shares insights on real estate investing and achieving financial freedom. Madeleine is dedicated to empowering others to reclaim their time, income, and joy through strategic real estate investments, mindset shifts, and systems aligned with personal priorities. Madeleine, welcome to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today.
Christina, thank you so much for having me and for that excellent intro. I mean, I'm blushing over here. Thank you so much.
Oh, well deserved. So now take me beyond your bio. What inspired you to transition from a corporate position to starting MHM Luxury Properties?
Yeah, so when I first got started in corporate, I was traveling over 100 nights a year in a hotel. And that was fun in my early 20s, kind of jet setting all over the place, airline miles. It's fun when it's new and exciting. You're out of school. And, I met my husband during that time, and he was in a similar position, traveling all over Kingdom Come in government sales. And so a lot of times we saw the same clients, and it was a fun season of life. And then we settled down. We started this little hobby farm. So we have goats and horses and chickens and big dogs and, this really idyllic life on our little farm. And so we started settling down a little bit. And then we had our first son. And I will never forget when he was about 10 months old, sitting at our dinner table and us being at a place of saying, something has got to give. We are making other people a ton of money, but we're not building anything for ourselves. We are traveling at a breakneck pace, typically in opposite directions, and we are missing out on these moments with our son. And so we said, it's scary, but we're going to make a change. And so how can we build something for us to give us some breathing room? My position was in a family business, and so I never really had an intention of leaving that business. But John, my husband, our goal was always to get him out of his 9-to-5 as quickly as possible. So at least one of us wasn't traveling all over the place. And so we opened that property. We purchased our first short-term rental, aka an Airbnb. And it was so wildly successful that we opened 5 more in 6 months. And during that 6 months, we actually got pregnant with our second son. And so we had this massive season of exponential growth. We were working to transition out of 9-to-5s. But because we had that rapid growth, I had to put on my COO hat and figure out how to create the systems, the processes, the automations. So we weren't creating other jobs for ourselves that were going to have us glued to our phone. And because I knew at the end of this, hey, we've got another little guy coming in December, I want to make sure that we have created not just the financial freedom, but also the time freedom in our business so that we are setting us up for sustainable success. And so that's really how it started, and we've continued to grow. We now have 16 properties under our management. We both left 9-to-5s a couple years ago, and that business runs in less than 1 to 2 hours a week. And I help now other families create that time and financial freedom through short-term rentals in my coaching business, because it was just so impactful in a way that I'd never imagined, that I wanted to make sure that I was helping other people be able to do the same thing.
What a wonderful story. And I just love how motherhood just kind of changes us, because it was very similar for me, where before having children, I just was like in hustle mode.
Totally.
I would do everything and just work all the time because I'm a little bit of a workaholic and I genuinely love what I do. But then once you have another human that you have to take care of and raise, and you want to be there for all of those special moments, you start to realize that it's not sustainable. And so beautiful that you pivoted and you figured out what would work for you and your family, and then to do it so quickly. I mean, that's so impressive. You said in 6 months, you went from, you said 1 property to 5 properties?
5.
Tremendous.
I don't necessarily recommend that to everyone. I mean, looking back, it was a little bit insane, but it all worked out in the end. I'm glad I did it. It was just not easy. And we were already committed to those when we found out I was pregnant, and pregnancy just does not physically agree with me very well. I'm very sick. So it was one of those, like, fly the airplane and we got to find an airport at some point. But that season of life was very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But I look back and I'm so thankful that we did it, but it was definitely hard in that season.
I'm sure, yeah. Now, you mentioned setting up systems and whatnot. So what were some of the systems that you focused on and put in place early on to make sure you weren't glued to your computer working 24/7?
Absolutely. So when in the short-term rental space, there are a lot of communications that have to happen. So let's say somebody books. You want to acknowledge that booking. Like, thanks so much for booking with us. You'll be getting your check-in information the day before you arrive. If you need anything, let us know in the meantime. So first thing I wanted to do was make sure that we had all of our communication automated, so that when somebody booked, they were getting a message automatically, no matter what time it was. I wasn't having to manually send that information out. So that was one of the first things. The next thing I looked to optimize was a unified booking calendar, because Airbnb isn't the only platform out there. We have Vrbo, Airbnb, and then, of course, our direct booking website where people can come to us. I didn't ever want there to be a situation where somebody booked on Airbnb and we got double booked on Vrbo. Mm-hmm. So making sure that we had a software in place that unified all of that and blocked off calendars was very important early on. And then there was the door locks. So, if you've ever stayed at an Airbnb where the door code is the last 4 digits of your cell phone number, that has to be programmed. So there are thankfully systems in place that will automatically program a door lock with the last 4 digits, activate it 15 minutes before check-in, deactivate it 15 minutes after checkout. But that was one of the biggest time savers for us, was communication, calendar management, and then, of course, those door locks to make sure that we weren't having to do that every time somebody checked in or checked out.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
There are lots of other things as well, but I would say those were the biggest time savers that got us from having to worry about every time somebody checked in or checked out the property.
Communication in any business, that is definitely something you want to kind of systemize and automate as soon as possible, because you could waste a lot of time with that, and it's tremendous. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, when did you realize that you needed to start building a team, and who was your first hire? What was that position?
So, right off the bat, I knew that in the short-term rental space, I was not going to be cleaning a property. I learned that back in my corporate career of, cleaning and laundry have never been my jam. So why would I start a business where I was taking on those responsibilities? So, to a certain extent, certain aspects of the business, like cleaning and handyman stuff, was always outsourced and part of our team. But as far as somebody who was full-time with us, helping us manage our business, I think it was 6 properties in, we hired a virtual assistant who came in and we had all of these wonderful systems, processes, automations in place. But she came in and took over that coordination of cleaners, dealing with guest communication. So anything outside of those automated messages, somebody wants a dinner recommendation or something like that. She's coordinating all of that. And we actually hired her directly from Airbnb. She was a training manager, and I used an agency to help me place her into our business. And because she was such a higher level employee over at Airbnb, she was just a phenomenal caliber of employee. And she took over paying all the bills. I mean, she literally does everything. She's still a part of our team. We've hired 2 more virtual assistants, which is how I'm able to run that business in generally less than an hour a week of my time.
That is great. Really makes your life so much easier.
So much easier. But I would say that I made an intentional point early on in my business to document those SOPs and those processes so that it was easy to hand off, because one of the hardest challenges with hiring, if it's not a good fit, a lot of times it's because you didn't communicate what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. And it seems like that was probably something you learned in the corporate world, right? That communication piece.
For sure. You got to let your expectations be known and be very clear about how you want it done. And if it's not done that way and you didn't communicate it, then that's my fault, not the other person.
Mm-hmm. What were some other leadership skills you had to develop over the course of your career to lead a team?
Ooh, that was a great question. I have not been asked that before. I'd say very clear and concise communication is one. The second is there are 2 books that I really love, and they both have principles. One is extreme ownership, which is at the end of the day, something that if something happens or doesn't happen, it's my responsibility in my own life. And that was a very pivotal leadership skill of I need to equip people. I need to manage them appropriately the way that they like to be managed, because at the end of the day, the result is what's important, but I have to figure out how to get the best results out of my people. That's my responsibility. And then the other book that I really love is Who Not How. And that is been huge for the growth of my business, is to think about not how do I fix the problem, but who can help me solve the problem. And working on that for myself and realizing at the end of the day, it's what I am pouring into me that is ultimately going to get the results from my team. That moves the needle, is something that it takes a minute to learn, but once you learn it, it's a me problem, not necessarily a you problem with my team.
Absolutely. I'm not familiar with either of those books. I'm definitely going to have to check them out. Thank you for the recommendation.
Absolutely.
But I love that ownership, taking ownership and responsibility, because I have worked with business owners who will be like, oh, it's the person that I hired, he or she is not, no. And at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. You hired them, maybe you weren't setting clear expectations. Maybe you weren't communicating exactly what needed to be done, how it needed to be done. Ultimately, you need to take that responsibility, because it's just going to slow you down. Yeah.
It's hard. And, don't hear me wrong, I'm big on holding people accountable, but taking ownership of communicating what you need, and if you need it done in the specific way, making that very clear, setting that person up for success, and then having check-ins to make sure that they're meeting those milestones. I kind of start off with a very short rein and then kind of let it out. But I also want to empower people to bring their own unique gifting and talent to the role. So you hired somebody for a reason, like maybe their perspective is different, but make sure that you're meeting those milestones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act between, you don't want to micromanage. You also want to be very clear. And then, like you said, you want to give them that freedom to bring their own expertise and personality to the role and the position, because then the business is just going to be better for it.
Totally. And one of the best things that I've done with this business is have really clear dashboards on Monday.com where I have full visibility into everything that's going on. And my like hard and fast party line of if it's not in Monday, it didn't happen. So if you don't want me like micromanaging you and asking you questions, make sure it's in Monday. Because if I can see the progress, get the answer I need, then I don't even have to talk to you about it. So like help me help you not be micromanaged. Make sure it's there, because I have a full dashboard of every single thing that I'm looking at to measure success over there. And we're all on the same page that it has to be a Monday. Thankfully, they all are excellent about doing it. And I don't even have to bug them about it, because I'm like, it's there. We're done. Like if I don't see it, then I'm going to ask some questions. But as long as it's there, I can see it in the dashboard and life is good.
That's great. And it keeps it. I think it's really good that there's that transparency, that everybody has access to everything that's going, I'm sure within reason, but like everything that's going on, everything.
Everybody has full transparency. We have a team of 3 VAs. We can see who changes what, who's updating certain things. Like if there's an issue that I'm seeing come across a Slack channel, or we have this unified phone line, which is really great in the short-term rental space. So if a guest calls in, whoever's on duty can text message back. I can hear every single call. I can see it all in a dashboard with guest communication. So if I'm needing an answer about that, it's automatically logging in Monday.com and I can check. Everybody has full visibility, which when you're working with a small team like that is huge. But I can typically find all the answers that I need without having to take them away from what they're already working.
Oh, that's great. So it sounds like so many wonderful automations are in place to make all of that happen.
It's crucial. It's crucial in any business, but specifically in this, if you don't want to be glued to your phone. Like I only have to pop in very rarely.
That's great. And then you can spend time with your children.
However I want to spend it.
Yeah. So what would you say your secret is to balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship?
Having a great village, whether that's a work village to help with my business or a phenomenal village to help with stuff at home. The village is really what it boils down to on both sides of things. And then figuring out what I love in each regard, what I love about my business or what I love about home, and then outsourcing the rest of it. So I shared a minute ago, like even in corporate, I knew cleaning and laundry was not my thing. I haven't done laundry in 15 years. I don't do my kids' laundry. I would much rather, be able to actively spend time with them. And I've gotten a good amount of "it must be nice" comments. And I'm like, you know what? It is, but you choose how you curate your life. And that is a choice you can make for yourself. I will not be shamed into thinking that I need to do it all at home and try and do it all in my business. Like, we've figured out a phenomenal system that works with us. And I know that my kids do not spell love, Love. They spell it Time. And so anything that takes that time away from them is something that better be worth it. And I just have not deemed laundry as worth that for me. So the village in both regards, and then figuring out what I love at home and at work, and then just getting rid of the rest of it.
And that's how you create a life that you love, that's joyful, and you're happy. And then you can show up as the mom you want to be because you're taking care of yourself first.
Totally.
And not in a selfish way, like in a way that's actually just really setting everybody else up for success.
Totally. Totally. But I don't know why people try and make it seem like a selfish thing, because it's not. It's not at all. And I that would be my encouragement to somebody who's, new to balancing it both, like both of them. Like you create the life that you want. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it. It is what makes you happy and works for your family.
Absolutely. That's really inspiring. I know for me and for my listeners. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So looking ahead, what's next for you and MHM Luxury Properties? Any exciting projects or anything you're working on?
Yes. So we are going to be continuing helping people and families create time and financial freedom through short-term rentals. So that is really exciting, like adding to our one-on-one mentorship and our coaching programs over there. My podcast, The Lux and the Short of It, is something that I'm continuing to pour into. We just hit top 75 in business, which I'm thrilled about. And we're adding more speaking engagements, and there's a book on the way. So lots of fun things coming down the pipe, and just spreading the message that you can create a life that you want to live on your own terms, with not just the financial freedom, but also the time freedom. So just spreading the message far and wide and saying, you don't have to stay stuck.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much. So overall, like, where can our listeners connect with you? And I know you mentioned your podcast. Any other places they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So, trying to think, I would highly recommend checking out the podcast, episode 3 specifically. It's called Success Habits of the Purposeful Mind. It's one of my absolute favorites of like my day-to-day, how I stack habits and really just make impact over there. So if you're just going to take a toe in the water of that, I would go check out episode 3. And then I'm on Instagram at Madeleine Raiford-Holland, also on LinkedIn, and my website is madeleineraiffordholland.com.
Wonderful. And I will link all of that in the show notes as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
And best of luck to all of your listeners, especially those that are welcoming new bundles of joy very soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Blissful Mompreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a fellow mompreneur who might benefit from the advice. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps this podcast reach more amazing women just like you. Thank you again for being here, and until next time, keep pursuing your bliss.